to start out with that because I've got a different bent on it that I've been hearing on your show. It kind of sounds like you guys are a little sowing Kierkegaard, where it's a blind leap into the dark. It isn't really based on evidence, and I don't look at it that way.
And see, my take on faith isn't that I don't view it in the sense that it is a belief. I view it as people have beliefs, and when they say their beliefs are justified by faith, I believe that explanation or that response, the appeal to faith, is the answer people give when they don't have a good reason for their beliefs. If you have a good reason, you don't need faith. You don't need to call it faith. I mean, I wouldn't say that my belief in something is based on faith if I actually had evidence and good reason for it.
Okay. Well, my take on faith is that it's a system of perception that establishes criteria of reality. To me, Christ, when he said, "I'm the way, the truth, and life," truth is reality, and he's either a reality or it's not. And so my view of reality is centered in on the person of Christ and what he was supposed to have been like. That's why, as a Christian, my view of reality is limited only to what I see all the time or what I reason out on my own.
So,
but at the same time, my definition of faith is rooted in Hebrews 11:1, which says it's the assurance of things hoped for, which sounds very predictive. It sounds very predictive.
Well, it may sound predictive, but it's not predictive in any scientific sense. I mean,
well,
that's a platitude.
Okay, well, it's a belief. It's a belief in another person that's developed. It's a trust that you have in another person who, over a period of time, has given you a reason to trust in them, to have a trustworthy feeling about them or towards them. Like if your father helped you cross the street Monday through Thursday to the bus stop as a child, on Friday you're going to trust him pretty well to get you across the street safely because of the last 4 days he did it that way.
But those are not the same kind of interactions.
Hang on, Kitty.
But those are not the same kind of interactions that you have with Jesus. So you're saying that you have some sort of interactions with Jesus?
Well, most Christians would have to say that they have an interaction of Jesus on some level, or they don't claim to have a personal relationship with him.
Okay, the thing is, if my dad helps me cross the street, that's something that's demonstrably real. The type of things that you associate with your relationship with Jesus are not demonstrably real.
Well, let's look at that again. If they took 1-year-old babies and they put them in front of a machine that they would feed a ball through down a ramp and it would swing around and go into a hole, and they kept sending these balls in sequentially, one after the other. And the baby would sit there and watch it and smile and everything. And then when they introduced the ball randomly from another hole or another inlet, all of a sudden that ball would cut in line and that baby would just shudder. Its whole body would shake and it would go blank and it would have a reaction to that sequence being interfered with. And they would do this repeatedly and repeatedly with baby after baby, male and female, different cultures, different backgrounds of the babies, and almost unanimously, these 1-year-old babies could see a sequence and they could trust in a sequence. And this led a lot of child psychologists to believe that when a parent trains their child in something, that it's very important to be consistent with what they're trying to teach them, anything they're trying to teach them, not just discipline, but trying to teach them anything.
What does this have to do with Jesus or anything?
Well, because the reason I believe that Jesus Christ will come back again, it's because I don't have any reason to believe that anything else that he said he was going to do, he didn't do.
Why do you believe he did anything?
I mean,
because I don't have any reason to distrust the Gospels.
Okay, so you're going to believe anything that you don't have a reason to distrust?
Oh, of course not.
Well, that's if you say no. Hang on, Kenny. Kenny. If you say that your reason for believing is that you don't have a reason to disbelieve, that is a shifting of the burden of proof, which you yourself acknowledge you wouldn't do for anything else, which means that the real reason you believe is something that you haven't talked about yet. It's not because you don't have a reason to disbelieve. There is something else There's some other reason that you believe. Otherwise, you would apply this for any other claim.
Why do you believe? Tell us that.
Well, I believe because I believe that the information that we have about the resurrection of Jesus Christ contained in the Gospels and in the 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians is reliable historically.
And how do you determine that that's reliable? Because, I mean, you're talking about claims that are
tell you?
Let me say, you're talking about claims
Okay.
that are supernatural in nature for which there isn't confirming evidence. So basically, you're believing a story.
Well, there are eyewitness accounts.
Where?
Well, you said on your program that we can't determine who wrote the 4 Gospels.
And that's correct.
And
it's
then
even
you
written.
also said on your program, which isn't true, I can confirm it.
Okay,
the other thing is,
stop, Kenny. Stop. What Bible do you have? Do you happen to have like an NIV?
I have pretty much all of them.
Okay. Would you open the NIV and look at the front page, the facer page for each of the 4 Gospels, where they explicitly say that we have no idea who the authors of these are? Would you go around to every New Testament scholar who's admitted that we don't know who the authors of the Gospels are? And would you then enlighten all of them, since you seem to be able to demonstrate something nobody else can?
Appeal to authority.
Appeal to authority? They're anonymous, Kenny.
Can you let me give my reason? Because I'm making this phone call, I'm not representing the NIV.
Okay, but you're asserting that you can demonstrate who the authors of the gospel are, and what I'm saying is that the New Testament scholars have almost to a man admitted this. I mean, it's printed right in the Bibles. We don't have any of the original autographs, and they're all written anonymously. So you're claiming to be able to demonstrate something that Bible scholars say can't be done, and I'm wondering how you do that.
Well, why don't you let me do it?
I'm waiting.
Okay, great. All right. What happens when a first century papyrus literary work was written? They always put a syllabus or citybos tag of papyrus reed, glued it onto the scroll with the name of the author and the title of what was written. In the case of Luke, they would have said Luke Evangelion, which is basically saying Luke's gospel. Now, the reason why we know this occurred isn't because we have the first century documents. We don't have to have them. It would be a mistake actually to hold on to them, since the ink rubs off the papyrus, and it would cause you to literally misread the gospel itself. So they would throw these away after they were copied. But how do we know that we've preserved Luke? And the reason we know we've preserved Luke is that if you look at the church fathers, you've got 3 of them. You've got Origen, you've got Tertullian, you've got Irenaeus, who state that Marcion took the original Gospel of Luke that was circulating in the church at that time, and this is early middle second century, that was circulating throughout the church, and he took it and he deleted portions of it and wrote his own gospel.
And what does that have to do with?
I'm not finished.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, Kenny. What does that have to do with the authorship?
I'm getting to it.
Hurry up. This isn't a 4-hour show.
Yeah, I know, but if you hadn't done 50% of the talking, I could have gotten
I'll tell you
done.
what. How's that? I've already lectured on the state of the biblical canon. You didn't give the reason for why you want to believe. Now you can call back in and wait in line. And I'm sorry if you think that's entirely unfair, but giving me a lecture on what Origen and Tertullian had to say about what Marcion did is not only mind-numbingly boring, it shows that you've read just enough to be dangerous, and that the New Testament scholars, by the way, many of whom are Christian and wrote those little things at the beginning, who say that, we have no good reason to say that we know who these authors are, and they've done dating on these things to show that some of them couldn't possibly have been written by the people that their names are associated with, and the fact that it's just church history. But even if you set all that aside and you were absolutely correct that the Gospels were written by people that you could identify, you have no way of verifying anything that's written in there as actually true. You are believing without evidence, and you gave your justification for it, was that you don't have a reason to disbelieve. That's a logical fallacy. You then went on to state that you believe it because you believe the stories. Congratulations. There's 1,000 other stories that you don't believe, which means you are not applying rigid, reliable standards to your beliefs. You're playing favorites. You found something you like, you ran with it, you studied, you couldn't find anything to disconfirm it, which is a shifting of the burden of proof, and therefore you think you're rationally justified. You are wrong, sir. Very, very wrong. I know because I used to do exactly the same thing. If you can't get to the answer without giving an entire lecture about forefathers, which you don't even realize that what you're talking about can't possibly demonstrate the thing that you claimed you could demonstrate. But now it's not fair for me to talk about you all. I've hung up on you. So thanks. Dave in Berkeley, how